Thank you all for coming out to this evening's program. Thanks for braving the rain, which sometimes the earth needs a cleansing. And thank you for coming to the W.E.B. Du Bois Darkwater Narratives from Within the Veil, an evening of poetry, story, and song. My name is Barbara, and I'm one of the librarians in the adult teen department. Now, just so you know, tonight's program is being recorded. And we also have someone who will be taking photographs of the speaker. Now, to provide some context, tonight's program marks the one-year anniversary of the Baldwin King Du Bois Reading Group that has been meeting on Tuesday evenings since November 2024 on our main floor here at Blackwell. And although Blackwell's been honored to host and provide the venue for the reading group, the credit and heavy lifting for starting and keeping the group going belongs to members of the Saturday Free School for Philosophy and Black Liberation, founded by you can applaud for that. Founded by Dr. Anthony Tony Montero, who, among many titles, is a native North Philadelphian Du Boisian scholar and longtime activist in world movements for peace and freedom. Also, special shout outs to Sembarda, Jeremiah, and Kathy, who along with Dr. Montero have facilitated the reading group at Blackwell each week. So again, let's give them a hand too, please. Over the course of the year, we have read and discussed the writings and philosophies of James Baldwin, Martin Luther King Jr., and W.E.B. Du Bois, all of whom were critical thinkers, activists, and revolutionaries with impact that is still being felt in the world today. I've said many times that calling this a reading group is a misnomer because it has been more of a reading, discussion, debating, and exchanging of ideas group. But that title is too long, hence the term reading group. But participants in and observers of the reading group in action know that it has been so much more. In keeping with the Saturday Free School's stated purpose, the reading group has explored social movements, politics, and the works of revolutionaries. The reading group is diverse, and so are the opinions and experiences of the participants, which led to lively, robust, stimulating, and engaging discussions. And I close by saying, as I've said many times before, this is all in keeping with Blackwell Regional Library's philosophy that the library should be a forum to not just provide resources and services, but to also allow for an exchange and encourage stimulating, thoughtful discussions, exchanges of ideas, and healthy dialogue that probes beyond the surface of issues. Since August, we have been reading and discussing W.E.B. Du Bois' Darkwater, Narratives from Within the Veil. And tonight, members of the reading group will read and reflect on excerpts from the readings. So tonight we come together in reflection and celebration of the past 12 months, marking the occasion with poetry, story, and song. And it is now my pleasure to introduce one of the reading group facilitators, Sembarda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. I think you really made my job easier. Also, welcome to everybody to this evening. As Barbara mentioned, we have been meeting here at this library since a year, and we wanted to do this event today because I think it's been a very unusual and beautiful year for all of us. And as Barbara said, we began this reading group as part of the Year of James Baldwin, which was a year-long endeavor of Saturday Free School, where we organized public reading groups, conferences, peace concerts, and art exhibitions, all to rediscover James Baldwin as God's revolutionary voice, who speaks to the people of Philadelphia and the world today. And this reading group, since then we have spent months studying the thinkers Barbara mentioned. And I want to say that our readings in this library have been really illuminating, because we don't read to ourselves, we don't read in a vacuum, but we read aloud together, and we grapple with ideas as they move us, as they make us question our own assumptions, and we do this openly. So I think, like this library, this reading group, for instance, we come from all different walks of life. We come from different parts of the city, and we would never have, gotten the chance to know each other, without this reading group. And I think, we have, since last year, we've really been on a journey together, a journey to, moving through ideas, where we're trying to discover our capacity to contribute to the making of a new world. And I'm proud to have been part of this journey, as all of us. So tonight's event is a celebration, as Barbara said, of this year, in which we have come together, like this discovery of our coming together as a new kind of community, I think, which is, it's made of principled ideological relationships to one another, where we come here because of our shared belief in a shared future. And so this reading group, it has been us, reading and discussing ideas that have moved us, and we question all of this. We question our own assumptions when we read. And this is why I think this reading group is, as Barbara said, no ordinary reading group, but I think it's a new way of doing revolutionary politics in the city. I think our reading group has shown that people are hungry for ideas, and in the reading group itself, we debate and we struggle with ideas and with each other, and we challenge ourselves to be mirrors to each other. And I want to say that I think this reading group could only come together at a place like this. 52nd Street is where white and black West Philadelphia collide. It's a place where the contradictions of our city, the fact that we have two cities within every city, the fact that poverty and wealth, security and death are merely blocks apart, these can no longer be avoided here. And I think it's also fitting that this library belongs in a place like this. This is, I think, Lucien Blackwell Library I have come to find out only in a year that it's a proud institution, it's a proud and strong institution which refuses to bow down to the constant uphill battles, that the members of the library face every day. And this year has also shown me that the library embodies the generosity of spirit of the people of Philadelphia, especially Black Philadelphia. And I mean the ability to give without asking, the courage to love without being loved, and a certain infectious vitality of life, which I think we all need. And it's this spirit with which Du Bois writes Darkwater, Voices from Within the Veil. It's this spirit with which he articulates a new vision for the world, a vision that comes from the veil, from behind the veil of Black America. And this is what we have been grappling with the past few months. So I want to say that Darkwater is an unusual and unique study. It's written in 1920, just a year after the end of the First World War, at a time when high and mighty Europe lies in ruins of its greed. It's a time when white America and Jim Crow reign triumphant. It's been 40 years since the defeat of Reconstruction, that great experiment in real democracy, which was overthrown as white America, armed with wealth, industry, and mobs, reinscribed the color line and tried to keep the black man in his place once more. And in all this human drama of lynchings and race massacres and war and poverty, which we're going to hear about in tonight's program, what Du Bois sees in all of this is a great crisis of modern times. He sees questions to which all humanity demands new answers. And it is to these unanswered questions of our times to which Du Bois speaks. Questions of modern manhood and womanhood, of motherhood, of the meaning of work, of the meaning of God, of war, of democracy. And he says And I quote, in this thinking, I have only to add a point of view. I have been in the world, but not of it. I have seen the human drama from a veiled corner, where all the outer tragedy and comedy have reproduced themselves in microcosm within. From this inner torment of souls, the human scene without has interpreted itself to me in unusual and even illuminating ways. So Darkwater is confrontational. In this, Du Bois is confronting the white world, the white view of the world, faced with the ever-present, white gaze, which judges and defines the possibility of black folk in America. He turns the tables, and he's looking right back, and he describes white civilization for the first time, and he describes it as ugly, immature, and human. And what he's doing really is he's transgressing the color line, and he's judging white America through black eyes. And in this judgment, he discovers a new vision, a new way of knowing the world, which he puts together. In Darkwater, it's a curation of essays and poetry, written in different years, and Du Bois puts them together in a particular way to tell us something new. And it is for this reason that Du Bois shines a light for us today. Because today we are in different times than when Du Bois writes Darkwater. It's a time when the white man's day is done. White civilization is on the verge of imploding. And all its definitions and standards are crumbling in front of our eyes. This is why our white-run cities and country, they look frankly ungovernable. And in times like this, despair runs high, even if disguised. And touchstones are hard to come by. This is why Du Bois is a touchstone for us, because his judgment of the white world today, he gives us, through this, he gives us a new vision with which to shape our own destinies in this time. And it's a vision, as we have all discovered, it not only makes us think anew, but it also expands our hearts. So tonight's event is an expression of this vision, which members of the reading group are going to put out. And we are doing this because in this reading group we have all come to see ourselves as part of this vision. And so tonight's event is going to be members of the reading group reading and reflecting on ideas that have touched us. Ideas in 3 acts: the fallen world, within the veil, and the immortal child. So I'll begin by reading the credo to Darkwater, which is his creed with which he begins to arrive at a new vision. I believe in God, who made of one blood all nations that on earth do dwell. I believe that all men, black and brown and white, are brothers, varying through time and opportunity, in form and gift and feature, but differing in no essential particular, and alike in soul and the possibility of infinite development. Especially do I believe in the Negro race, in the beauty of its genius, in the sweetness of its soul, and its strength in that meekness which shall yet inherit this turbulent earth. I believe in pride of race and lineage and self, in pride of self so deep as to scorn injustice to other selves, in pride of lineage so great as to despise no man's father, in pride of race so chivalrous as neither to offer bastardy to the weak nor beg wedlock of the strong, knowing that men may be brothers in Christ, even though they be not brothers in law. I believe in service, humble, reverent service, from the blackening of boots to the whitening of souls. For work is heaven, idleness hell, and wage is the well done of the Master, who summoned all them that labor and are heavy laden, making no distinction between the black sweating hands of Georgia and the first families of Virginia, since all distinction not based on deed is devilish and not divine. I believe in the devil and his angels, who wantonly work to narrow the opportunity of struggling human beings, especially if they be black. who spit in the face of the fallen, strike them that cannot strike again, to believe the worst and work to prove it, hating the image which their maker stamped on a brother's soul. I believe in the Prince of Peace. I believe that war is murder. I believe that armies and navies are at bottom the tinsel and braggadocio of oppression and wrong. And I believe that the wicked conquest of weaker and darker nations by nations whiter and stronger, but foreshadows the death of that strength. I believe in liberty for all men, the space to stretch their arms and their souls, the right to breathe and the right to vote, the freedom to choose their friends, enjoy the sunshine, and ride on the railroads uncursed by color, thinking, dreaming, working as they will in a kingdom of beauty and love. I believe in the training of children, black even as white, the leading out of little souls into the green pastures and beside the still waters, not for pel for peace, but for life lit by some large vision of beauty and goodness and truth. Lest we forget, and the sons of the fathers, like Esau, for mere meat bartered their birthright in a mighty nation. Finally, I believe in patience. Patience with the weakness of the weak and the strength of the strong. Prejudice of the ignorant and the ignorance of the blind. Patience with the tardy triumph of joy and the mad chastening of sorrow. So with that, we're going to begin our evening. So the first act for tonight is what we're calling the fallen world. And in this world, Du Bois is bearing witness to the depth of the depravity of the white world. So we begin our evening with a prayer, a call. A year after the Atlanta race riots of 1906, Du Bois wrote a litany at Atlanta. It's a prayer to a silent God, to show us the way out of insult and death, to give us a plan to not remain deaf and dumb to our sufferings. It's written in the call and response, echoing the black church. And Du Bois asks God, surely you too are not white? I'll now ask Dr. Anthony Montero to lead us in the prayer. And I'll also ask the audience to join us in response, to read the italicized parts of the poem in response to the lead.
Thank you very much, Sambarto, and thank you all for coming out. And I especially want to thank Barbara, who's been unbelievable, and without her, we would not be able, forgive me, we would not be able to have carried out this whole year. Just a thing about this prayer to Atlanta and to Black people in Atlanta. Oh, just one other thing. Sambarto said we're from all over the city. He didn't mention we're from all over the world. He and I thought I spoke so loud. He and Purba and Shantanu are from India, and Nuri and Jeremiah are from Korea, and Kathy is from China, and I'm from North Philly, and Ike is from Georgia, So this was an experience, special kind of experience to have read Du Bois in this inter-civilizational way, because coming from India, Du Bois must seem different than we who come from here. So it was a great experience, believe me. This is a prayer to the people of Atlanta. It was written as a litany to those who had died in the Atlanta riot of 1906. Du Bois often writes poetry in the meter and style of the Old and New Testaments. and he will often refer to God as that ideal to which humanity should strive. So I'll just start, and you all read the italicized words. O silent God, thou whose voice afar in mist and mystery hath left our ears unhungered in these fearful days.
Hear us, good Lord.
Listen to us, the children. Our faces dark with doubt are made a mockery in thy sanctuary. With uplifted hands, we front thy heaven, O God, crying,
We beseech thee to hear us, good Lord.
we are not better than our fellows. Lord, we are but weak and human men. When our devils do deviltry, curse thou the doer and the deed. Curse them as we curse them. Do to them all and more than ever they have done to innocence and weakness, to womanhood and home.
Have mercy upon us, miserable sinners.
And yet, whose is the deeper guilt? Who made these devils? Who nursed them in crime and fed them on injustice? Who ravished and debauched their mothers and their grandmothers? Who bought and sold their crime and waxed fat and rich on public inquiry?
Thou knowest, good God.
Is this thy justice, O Father, that guile be easier than innocence, and the innocent be crucified for the guilt of the untouched guilty?
Justice, O judge of men.
Wherefore do we pray? Is not the God of the fathers dead? Have not seers seen in heaven's halls thine hearsed and lifeless form, stark amidst the black and rolling smoke of sin, where all along bow bitter forms of endless dead?
Awake, thou that sleepest.
Thou art not dead, but flown afar, up hills of endless light, through blazing corridors of suns, where worlds do swing of good and gentle men, of women strong and free, far from the cozenage, black hypocrisy, and chaste prostitution of the shameful speak of dust.
Turn again, O Lord, and lead us not to perish in our sin.
From lust of body and lust of blood,
Great God, deliver us.
from lust of power and lust of gold,
Great God, deliver us.
from the leagued line of despot and brute.
Great God, deliver us.
A city lay in travail, God, our Lord, and from her loins sprang twin murder and black hate. Red was the midnight, clang, crack, and cry of death and fury filled the air and trembled underneath the stars where church spires pointed silently to thee. And all this was to state the greed of greedy men who hide behind the veil of vengeance.
Bend us thine ear, O Lord.
In the pale, still morning, we looked upon the dead. We stopped our ears and held our leaping hands, but did they not wag their heads and leer and cry with bloody jaws, cease from crime? The word was mockery, for thus they train 100 crimes while we do cure one.
Turn again our captivity, O Lord.
Behold this maimed, broken thing, dear God. It was an humble black man who toiled and sweat to save a bit from the pittance paid him. They told him, work and rise. He worked. Did this man sin? Nay, but someone told how someone said another did, and one whom he had never seen nor known. Yet for that man's crime, this man lieth maimed and murdered, his wife naked to shame, his children to poverty and evil.
Hear us, O Heavenly Father.
Doth not this justice of hell stink in thy nostrils, O God? How long shall the mounting flood of innocent blood roar in thine ears and pound in our hearts for vengeance? Pile the pale frenzy of blood-crazed brutes who do such deeds high on thine altar, Jehovah Jireh, and burn it in hell forever and forever.
Forgive us, O Lord, we know not what we say.
Bewildered we are and passion-tossed, mad with the madness of a mob and mocked and murdered people. Straining at the arm post of thy throne, we raise our shackled hands and charge thee, God, by the bones of our stolen fathers, by the tears of our dead mothers, by the very blood of thy crucified Christ. What meaneth this? Tell us the plan. Give us the sign.
Keep not thou silent, O God.
Sit not longer blind, Lord God, deaf to our prayers and dumb to our dumb suffering. Surely thou, too, art not white, O Lord, a pale, bloodless, heartless thing.
Ah, Christ of all the pities.
Forgive the thought, forgive these wild blasphemous words. Thou art still the God of our black fathers, and in thy soul's soul sits some soft darkening of the evening, some shadowing of the velvet night. Whisper, speak, call, great God, for thy silence is white terror to our hearts. The way, O God, show us the way and point us the path. Whither? North is greed and south is blood. Within the coward and without, the liar, whither? To death.
Amen. Welcome, dark sleep.
Whither? To life. But not this life, dear God, not this. Let the cup pass from us. Tempt us not beyond our strength, for there is that clamoring and clawing within, to whose voice we would not listen, yet shudder lest we must. And it is red. Ah, God, it is a red and awful shape.
Selah.
That's the city, ancient city in what is today Jordan. In yonder east trembles a star.
Vengeance is mine. I will resist, saith the Lord.
Thy will, O Lord, be done.
Kyrie eleison.
Lord, we have done these pleadings, wavering words.
We beseech thee to hear us, Lord.
We bow our heads and hearken soft to the sobbing of women and little children.
We beseech thee to hear us, Lord.
Our voices sink in silence and in night.
Hear us, Lord.
In night, O God, of godless land.
Amen.
In silence, O silent God.
Selah.
Why is white civilization great? Who raised these fools to their glory, but darker humanity of Asia and Africa? It is dark humanity which shall track them down again. But where will that courage come from? Faced with God's silence, Bois turns towards humanity for an answer. He finds that the answer comes not from the east, not the west, but from the sad black south. So I'm going to now ask Ken Johnston to read the poem, The Riddle of the Sphinx.
The Riddle of the Sphinx. Dark daughter of the lotus leaves that watch the southern sea, wan spirit of a prisoned soul, a panting to be free. The muttered music of thy streams, the whisper of the deep, have kissed each other in God's name and kissed a world to sleep. The will of the world is a whistling wind, sweeping a cloud-swept sky, and not from the east and not from the west, kneel that soul-waking cry. But out of the south, the sad black South, its scream from the top of the sky, crying, awake, O ancient race, wailing, O woman, arise, and crying and sighing and crying again as the voice in the midnight cries. But the burden of white men bore her back, and the white world stifled her sighs. The white world's vermin and filth. All the dirt of London, all the scum of New York, valiant spoilers of women and conquerors of unarmed men, shameless breeders of bastards, drunk with the greed of gold, baiting their blood-stained hooks with cant for the souls of the simple, bearing the white man's burden of liquor and lust and lies. Unthankful we wince in the east, unthankful we wail from the westward, unthankfully thankful we curse in the unworn wastes of the wild. I hate them, oh, I hate them well. I hate them, Christ, as I hate hell. If I were God, I'd sound their knell. This day, who raised the fools to their glory, but black men of Egypt and Ind, Ethiopia's sons of the evening, Indians and Chinese, Arabian children of morning, and mongrels of Rome and Greece? Ah, well. And they that raise the boasters shall drag them down again, down with the theft of their thieving, and murder and mocking of men, down with the barter of women and laying and lying of creeds, down with their cheating of childhood and drunken orgies of war, down, down, deep down, till the devil's strength be shorn, till some dim, darker David a hoeing of his corn, and married maiden, mother of God, bid the black Christ be born. Then shall our burden be manhood, be it yellow or black or white. And in poverty and justice and sorrow, the humble and simple and strong shall sing with the sons of morning and daughters of even song. Black mothers of iron hills that ward the blazing sea, wild spirit of a storm-swept soul, a struggling to be free. Where 'neath the bloody finger marks thy riven bosom quakes, thicken the thunders of God's voice, and lo, a world awakes.
As the world awakes, it must know the white world, the white idea of what it means to be alive. Not the white world's self-image, but as reflected in the eyes of its darker brother. The world must know the meaning of personal whiteness, what gives meaning to an entire people, and carve out of this chaos a new human being, a new meaning of modern manhood and womanhood. So I'll ask Cassie Bishop to read and reflect on the souls of white folk.
Why pray to God if God already knows all our thoughts? I think we should pray to make human speech divine, that is, to make humanity divine, as Du Bois writes in his Hymn to the Peoples. With the Free School, we've been reading Du Bois's Darkwater, not quietly to ourselves, as often I have read books with other people, but all together and out loud. And so while we're reading, we're also talking to each other like this. Enunciate, someone says to the person reading. Or, could you read that part again, slower? Or, but what page is that you're reading from? And so we're listening, to be sure, oftentimes to Du Bois, but always and also to each other's voices. And it is mainly through our voices that Du Bois himself speaks. One Tuesday, while we're reading Du Bois's story, Jesus Christ in Texas, Ken pauses to ask us, can we talk about the N-word? From the conversation that follows, I start to wonder what else might be speaking when I open my mouth. Borrowing a term from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, in The Souls of White Folk, Du Bois describes the soul of white folk as a modern Prometheus, as a soul tortured by a monster of its own creation, a monster that Du Bois calls personal whiteness. He writes, "The discovery of personal whiteness among the world's peoples is a very modern thing, a 19th and 20th century matter indeed. The ancient world would have laughed at such a distinction. The Middle Age regarded skin color with mild curiosity, and even up into the 18th century we were hammering our national mannequins into one great universal man, with fine frenzy which ignored color and race even more than birth. Today we have changed all that, and the world, in a sudden emotional conversion, has discovered that it is white, and by that token, wonderful." From this point, Du Bois unmasks race hatred as personal whiteness's evil twin. In his words, he rebukes, quote, "the despising and robbing of darker peoples that sits enthroned even in the souls of those who cry peace," end quote. And in another passage, he writes, "This theory of human culture and its aims has worked itself through warp and woof of our daily thought with a thoroughness that few realize. Everything great, good, efficient, fair, and honorable is white. Everything mean, bad, blundering, cheating, and dishonorable is yellow. A bad taste is brown, and the devil is black. The changes of this theme are continually rung in picture and story, in newspaper heading and moving picture, in sermon and schoolbook, until, of course, the king can do no wrong. A white man is always right, and a black man has no rights which a white man is bound to respect. It is only from an unusual point of vantage, a point of vantage that Du Bois later termed the great near, that Du Bois is able to exercise this great power of personal whiteness even from the nearest human expression and deed. In Du Bois's The Souls of White Folk, the vantage of the great near is symbolized by a high tower at sea. From the narrowed windows of this tower, the entrails of human souls are laid bare. Suffice it to say that for Du Bois, the symbol of the tower, which features elsewhere in his writing, is something very different from the towers and castles in Gothic fiction. The Souls of White Folk. Du Bois writes, "High in the tower, where I sit above the loud complaining of the human sea, I know many souls that toss and whirl and pass, but none there are that intrigue me more than the souls of white folk. Of them I am singularly clairvoyant. I see in them and through them. I view them from unusual points of vantage. Not as a foreigner do I come, for I am native, not foreign. Bone of their thought and flesh of their language. Mine is not the knowledge of the traveler or the colonial composite of dear memories, words, and wonder, nor yet is my knowledge that which servants have of masters, or mass of class, or capitalist of artisan. Rather, I see these souls undressed and from the back inside. I see the workings of their entrails. I know their thoughts, and they know that I know. This knowledge makes them now embarrassed, now furious. They deny my right to live and call me misbirth." By contrast, in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the monster's knowledge is strictly that which servants have of masters. The monster crouches in a wretched hovel that adjoins a cottage of a neat and pleasant appearance. Through a narrow, almost imperceptible crack in the wall, the monster spies on the lovely, gentle people that live in the cottage. As we know, when the monster finally reveals itself to these its friends, they shriek in fear and lash out to kill. But before that happens, and for many months, the monster does the cottagers' housework, under cover of night. It says, I afterwards found that these labors, performed by an invisible hand, greatly astonished them, and once or twice I heard them, on these occasions, utter the words, Good Spirit, wonderful. But I did not then understand the significance of these terms. From the vantage of the great near, the significance of these terms is obvious. The good spirit and the monster are the very same beast. To bless the one is to damn the other by the power of personal whiteness. In The Souls of White Folk, Du Bois records how, in the decades before the First World War, King Leopold's regime in the Belgian Congo meant the death of 12 million natives. He writes, Yet the fields of Belgium laughed. The cities were gay, art and science flourished. The groans that helped to nourish this civilization fell on deaf ears. In 1914, the First World War began, and Belgium was invaded by the German Empire. Du Bois continues, As we saw the dead dimly through rifts of battle smoke and heard faintly the cursings and accusations of blood brothers, we darker men said, This is not Europe gone mad. This is not aberration nor insanity. This is Europe. This seeming terrible is the real soul of white culture, back of all culture, stripped and visible today. But what of the darker world that watches, Du Bois asked, and I'll end with this passage from him. Most men belong to this world. With Negro and Negroid, East Indian, Chinese, and Japanese, they form 2/3 of the population of the world. A belief in humanity is a belief in colored men. If the uplift of mankind must be done by men, then the destinies of this world will rest ultimately in the hands of darker nations. What then is this dark world thinking? It is thinking that as wild and awful as this shameful war was, it is nothing to compare with that fight for freedom which black and brown and yellow men must and will make unless their oppression and humiliation and insult at the hands of the white world cease. The dark world is going to submit to its present treatment just as long as it must, and not one moment longer.
Thanks, Cassie. My name is Jeremiah. I think all of you know me, but my name is Jeremiah. I'm a member of the Saturday Free School and of this reading group. I feel like we have to take a little bit of a breather after all that. I just wanted to say kind of the movement of tonight's program is a movement through Darkwater itself. So the passages that you've heard from, the 2 poems and then the essay that Cassie just read from are early on in Darkwater, and our reading group kind of progressed through these essays and poems and kind of worked through them as Shambarte was saying. And so we're also trying to take you through a kind of journey in microcosm of what that was like. And so now we're entering Act 2 of the program, which is titled Within the Veil. And we're now moving fully across the color line into that place, like Du Bois called it, within the veil. Du Bois speaks from within a living current of history, the life, world, and consciousness of Black people in America. He was not an elitist, as some claim. He went directly to the dust and blood of his people's struggles to overcome a system that was stacked against them. And throughout his work, as you heard, ring the melodies of a music that the world had never heard before, songs that were full of sorrow and striving. And it's this prism through which he sees the problems of our modern world, as Shambarte said. And I wanted to say that when you go consciously to that place, as we did in our reading group, you start to see things differently. Philadelphia looks different from within the veil. America looks different. The world looks different. The white world trains people to see certain problems as normal, to turn a blind eye, to sweep things under the rug. And it's true that a lot can be normalized, but that will never make it right. A city where 1/4 of our people live in poverty is not right. A city built by Black working men and women, yet whose children do not see a place for themselves here, is not right. And so in part, Du Bois and Darkwater forces us to ask, how many have been sacrificed on the altar of a white supremacist society? How much precious human value has been sneered at, stomped into the dirt? And beneath it all, what possibilities are stirring, waiting to be unleashed? And so in this section, you're going to hear from 2 essays in Darkwater, one which is titled Of Work and Wealth, and the other which is titled The Damnation of Women, and then it will be followed by some poetry. And I'm just going to kind of say a little bit about each one, and then we'll go directly into them. And so in Of Work and Wealth, which will be read by Shimbarto, it kind of gets into what was mentioned earlier with Du Bois writing Darkwater under this great shadow, the defeat of Reconstruction. And so Of Work and Wealth is really capturing that moment when Black people fled white supremacist terror in the South with Jim Crow. And they fled to the North in the Great Migration, but there they were met with intimidation, discrimination, and violence in the urban North. And so Of Work and Wealth is about one of those instances. It's about the East St. Louis massacre of 1917. It is also a chapter about the Industrial Revolution. It is about that great flood of laborers who came into this industrial colossus of a young nation, the growing metropolises of the North and the Midwest. It is about the meeting of the world, the meeting of men from Europe and from Africa and later from Asia. America is supposed to be, in this sense, a continuation of Europe. This is how it was envisioned. And yet, as Du Bois writes, the quote-unquote normal logic of European historical development and the class struggle bursts apart here in America. And so, as Du Bois writes, hell flamed in St. Louis. And so what he's describing is essentially one of many brutal massacres that erupted in that period of US history. Children are killed with their fathers and mothers by the hundreds in East St. Louis. And I just wanted to share that this was an essay that we wrestled with. It was not an easy essay to read, not just because of the violence, but because of some of the implications of what Du Bois is saying. And Du Bois starts the essay by asking, quote, "Do you trust white people?" Another way to say that is, at least my interpretation, what at the basic level is the relationship between Black people and white people? Or even more specifically, between the Black and white parts of our own city? And another question that we grappled with was, as Du Bois is kind of going through this great drama of the chapter, we asked, how do you tell the story itself? And so Du Bois does it, as you'll hear, by introducing us to 3 characters. And I want to emphasize, he uses drama, a sense of literature, to tell the story, and essentially to capture that explosive energy of this still forming society with all its complexity, and essentially to capture the human beings who are at the center of it. And so we debated, can this type of pedagogy be used to teach Americans, especially children, about their history? Can it be used to teach us to see our own selves on the stage that Du Bois sets, and therefore to be presented with the same questions and choices? How can the story be told without dumbing it down or making it palatable? And I just want to end this portion by saying that Du Bois identifies white supremacy as this fault line around which all things in our society bend and snap, and all of us are drawn into that vortex, not just Black and white, but also immigrants, who often seize upon this golden path to whiteness. And so Du Bois proposes, there is a great demand facing our nation and our world, and it is not a pure, clean, and simple economic proposition of the working class getting together. And it's something else, and I want you to listen for it. I'll introduce Shimbarto.
Three men came wandering across this place. They were neither kings nor wise men, but they came with every significance, perhaps even greater than that which the kings bore in the days of old. There was one who came from the north, brawny and riotous with energy, a man of concentrated power, who held all the thunderbolts of modern capital in his great fists and made flour and meat, iron and steel, cunning chemicals, wood, paint and paper, transform into endless tools a disemboweled earth. He was one who saw nothing, knew nothing, sought nothing, but the making and buying of that which sells, who out of the magic of his hand rolled over miles of iron road, ton upon ton of food and metal and wood, of coal and oil and lumber, until the thronging of knotted ways in East and real St. Louis was like the red festering ganglia of some mighty heart. Then from the east, and called by the crash of thunderbolts and forked flame, came the unwise man, unwise by the theft of endless ages, but as human as anything God has ever made. He was the slave for the miracle maker. It was he that the thunderbolt struck and electrified into gasping energy. And the rasp of his hard breathing shook the midnights of all this endless valley, and the pulse of his powerful arms set the great nation to trembling. And then at last, out of the south, like a still small voice, came the third man, black, with great eyes and greater memories, hesitantly eager, and yet with the infinite softness and ancient calm which come from that eternal race whose history is not the history of a day, but of endless ages. Here surely was fit meeting place for these curiously intent forces, for these epoch-making and age-twisting forces, for these human feet on these superhuman errands. Here were black men, guilty not only of bidding for jobs which white men could have held at war prices, even if they could not fill, but also guilty of being black. Everything in the history of the United States, from slavery to Sunday supplements, from disfranchisement to resident segregation, from Jim Crow cars to Jim Crow army draft, all this history of discrimination and insult festered to make men think and willing to think that the venting of their anger, of their unbridled anger against 12 million humble, upstriving workers was a way of settling the industrial tangle of the ages. It was the logic of the broken plate, which seared of old across its pattern, cracks never again, save along the old destruction. This is the stage for this tragedy, the armored might of the modern world, urged by the bloody needs of the world wants, fevered today by a fabulous vision of gain, and needing only hands, hands, hands. The problem raised by East St. Louis was curiously complex. The ordinary American, tired of the persistence of the Negro problem, sees only another anti-Negro mob and wonders not when we shall settle this problem, but when we shall be well rid of it. Eastward from St. Louis lie great centers like Chicago, Indianapolis, Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and New York. In every one of these centers, what happened in East St. Louis has been attempted with more or less success. Yet the American Negro stands today as the greatest strategic group in the world. Their services are indispensable. Their temper and character are fine, and their souls have seen a vision more beautiful than any other mass of workers. We ask, and perhaps there is no answer, how far may the captain of the world's industry do his deeds despite the grinding tragedy of its doing? How far may men fight for the beginning of comfort out beyond the horrid shadow of poverty at the cost of starving other and what the world calls lesser men? How far may those who reach up out of the slime that fills the pits of the world's dam compel men with loaves to divide with men who starve? How should we think such a problem through, not simply as Negroes, but as men and women of a new century, helping to build a new world? Somebody decides whose wants should be satisfied. somebody organizes industry so as to satisfy these wants. If we do away with interest and profit, consider the savings that could be made, but above all, think how great the revolution would be when we ask the mysterious somebody to decide, in the light of public opinion, whose wants should be satisfied. This is the great and real revolution that is coming in future industry. But this is not the need of the revolution, nor indeed perhaps its real beginning. What we must decide sometime is who are to be considered men. The meaning of America is the beginning of the discovery of the crowd. The crowd is not so well trained as a Versailles garden party of Louis XIV, but it is far better trained than the sans-culottes, and it has infinite possibilities. What a world this will be when human possibilities are freed, when we discover each other, when the stranger is no longer the potential criminal and the certain inferior. In this coming socialization of industry, we must guard against that same tyranny of the majority that has marked democracy in the making of laws. There must, for instance, persist in this future economics a certain minimum of machine-like work and prompt obedience and submission. This necessity is a simple corollary from the hard facts of the physical world. It must be accepted with the comforting thought that its routine need not demand 12 hours a day or even 8. With work for all and all at work, probably from 3 to 6 hours would suffice, and leave abundant time for leisure, exercise, study, and avocations. But what shall we say of work where spiritual values and social distinctions enter? Who shall be artists, and who shall be servants in the world to come? Or shall we all be artists and all serve? Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say that last line, shall not all be artists and all serve, has been very inspiring for a lot of us. And it's kind of the ethos behind this event too. So now we're going to move to the next essay of this act, which is called The Damnation of Women. And I'll just say a little bit and then I'll introduce. So this essay is written as a tribute to 4 women in Du Bois's life. And as you'll hear from Porba and from Birdie, Du Bois sees the gifts of black folk to this new world, their gifts as workers and as builders, and their gifts as a people who've struggled for new ways of relating to each other out of the fires of oppression. And in particular, he sees the gifts of black women who had no choice but to work and to be mothers at the same time. And yet, through that, came to embody a new spirit of womanhood, more fiercely free. And this essay, I have to add, is not a message only for women, but for men as well. All over the world today, people are confronted with the question, what are the right relations between men and women? And I also wanted to add that both of these essays are about work, too. And as Shambarto just read, what Du Bois is saying is that we're asking is whether out of the degradation of exploitation and of unvalued labor, can we achieve a new vision of work in this life as co-workers in the kingdom of culture, as he once said. People working with a purpose to change and to rebuild the society. And so I wanted to add that we chose this essay for this program as also a tribute to the women in our reading group. Women who have shown in real life many of the qualities that Du Bois writes about in the essay. And as you'll hear, Du Bois connects this back to the African mother ideal, and into something that is both ancient and modern. And just the last thing is that in this essay, as well as the related poems kind of clustered around it, Du Bois goes very deeply into themes of grief, and especially the grief of black mothers who lose their children. And through it all, he asserts that this world within the veil is in fact a new civilization being born. And as such, it is a civilization that is worth fighting for. And with that, I'd like to introduce Bernadette Rogers, and Porba Chatterjee, who will be reading and reflecting from this essay.
would like to say I've enjoyed this group. I'm okay. I'm pretty new to the Freedom School, but I want to say I've enjoyed it a whole lot, and I've learned a lot. Du Bois speaks about the traditional African society. Mungo Park, an 18th century Scottish explorer of West Africa, wrote, "Everywhere in Africa, I have noticed that no greater affront can be offered a Negro than insulting his mother. Strike me, cries a Mandingo to his enemy, but revile not my mother." From the Zulus to the Waganda, we find the mother, the most influential counselor at the court of ferocious sovereigns like Chaka or Matessa. Sometimes sisters take her place. Even with chiefs with many wives, the bonds of blood are strongest, and the woman, though heavily burdened, is held in no small esteem among the Negroes. It is clear from the numerous queens, from the medicine women, from participation in public meetings permitted to women by many African peoples. I would like to contrast the White American Society in 1863. The World's Temperance Convention in New York, in 1853, bogged down for 3 days in a dispute about whether women would be allowed to speak there. Susan B. Anthony, a leader of the suffrage movement, later said, "No advance step taken by women has been so bitterly contested as that of speaking in public." So even in 1853 in America, it was mostly not permitted for women to speak. Du Bois says, I shall forgive the white South much in its final judgment day. I shall give it slavery, for slavery is a world-old habit. But one thing I shall never forgive, it's his wanton and continued and persistent insulting of black womanhood, which it sought and seeks to prostitute to its lust. I remember in the 80s and 90s, some of the black rappers were calling women, I hate to use the language, bitches and hoes. It was very degrading as a black woman to hear these words. Also in today's world, the Epstein case of the trafficking of over 1,000 young girls shows the further abuse and degradation of females. Thank goodness today women are organizing to fight against the abusers. When I was a teenager in the 70s, I admired Angela Davis and Fannie Lou Hamer for their bravery, intelligence, and commitment to the black community. Many of our young women today admire Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, two rappers that are rapping about sexual topics as opposed to community empowerment. Nicki Minaj, a black female rapper who is regarded as the queen of rap and is one of the most influential rappers. She has been famous for over 20 years. These three rappers are almost totally apolitical, as in the case of Nicki Minaj, who just recently agreed with Donald Trump, of all people, in using her large platform to draw global attention to the violence faced by Christians in Nigeria. She is now working with the Trump administration at the United Nations. Many people involved in progressive politics, to many people involved in progressive politics, this is another issue blown out of proportion, just another bogus Trump distraction. As Du Bois so brilliantly points out in the 1920s, slavery and white supremacy has degraded the black female. As I pointed out earlier, some black rappers have also been a part of these violations of black women and also the black family. As a senior African American female raised in Texas, I faced harsh racism and sexism. But throughout my life, I've known black women in my family, friends, and neighbors that are some of the most beautiful, intelligent, talented, and some of the strongest people I've ever known. We carry on daily with pride, wisdom, dignity, and bravery and compassion despite the oppression. Thank you.
I'm also going to start by reading some excerpts. The world wants healthy babies and intelligent workers. Today, we refuse to allow the combination and force thousands of intelligent workers to go childless at a horrible expenditure of moral force, or we damn them if they break our idiotic conventions. Only at the sacrifice of intelligence and the chance to do their best work can the majority of modern women bear children. This is the damnation of women. What does this mean? It forecasts a mighty dilemma which the whole world of civilization, despite its will, must one time frankly face: the unhusbanded mother or the childless wife. God sent us a world with woman's freedom and married motherhood inextricably wed, but until he sends it, I see more of future promise in the betrayed girl mothers of the Black Belt than in the childless wives of the White North. And I have more respect for the colored servant who yields to her frank longing for motherhood than for her white sister who offers up children for clothes. What is today the message of these black women to America and to the world? The uplift of women is, next to the problem of the color line and the peace movement, our greatest modern cause. When, now, two of these movements, woman and color, combine in one, the combination has deep meaning. For this, their promise, and for their hard past, I honor the women of my race. Their beauty, their dark and mysterious beauty of midnight eyes, crumpled hair, and soft, full-featured faces, is perhaps more to me than to you, because I was born to its warm and subtle spell. But their worth is yours as well as mine. No other women on earth could have emerged from the hell of force and temptation which once engulfed and still surrounds black women in America with half the modesty and womanliness that they retain. I've always felt like bowing myself before them in all abasement, searching to bring some tribute to these long-suffering victims, these burdened sisters of mine, whom the world, the wise, white world, loves to affront and ridicule and wantonly to insult. I have known the women of many lands and nations. I have known and seen and lived beside them, but none have I known more sweetly feminine, more unswervingly loyal, more desperately earnest, and more instinctively pure in body and in soul than the daughters of my black mothers. This, then, a little thing to their memory and inspiration. Well, in discussing what parts we would read from the essay, Birdie and I both agreed that we had to read out the Bois's tribute to black women at the end of the essay because of how beautiful and moving it is. And I wanted to just start by saying that, of course, you know, the example of revolutionary women like Coretta Scott King, Diane Nash, Nina Simone, and so many others has been very important for me and my development. But I have to say, I'm equally grateful to the Bois for my ability to understand what black womanhood represents for this world. And this essay is really evidence that when he speaks, black womanhood as much as black manhood speaks through him and with him. And the main thing that I wanted to draw from the excerpts was also what he says about motherhood. I've always really been struck by what he says, where he says that he sees more future promise in the unhusbanded black mother than in the childless white wife. And it makes sense because of slavery, marriage as an institution was not what shaped Black womanhood. They were shaped by the struggle for freedom. And so, as Du Bois puts it, freedom from patriarchal norms was contemptuously thrust upon them. But from the very beginning, the identity of Black women was as a worker and also as a mother. And in choosing motherhood, even when marriage was unsupportable, I think has given the whole world an example that you don't have to sacrifice on wanting to be a complete human being in a modernity that is still incomplete, which still has these big questions to answer, like what does it mean to be a modern man or a modern woman? And even marriage, like how are marriages to be sustained in the modern world, not just economically, but also spiritually and emotionally. And Birdie really pushed me also to talk about this essay from my perspective as an Indian woman. And it made me reflect a lot, actually. And I realized that growing up in India, I don't think I ever felt held back when it came to, say, pursuing an education or choosing what kind of job I wanted to do or what my life would be. And I know this is not universal, but I also want to, I think I'm not wrong to say this. I also don't think it's rare. My example is not rare. And that said, I do think in India, women are still expected to be tied in said or unsaid ways to family and tradition and to marriage. And I mean, things like divorce and separation are still long ways to be fully accepted in Indian society, even though, things are changing. But, even if you accept that there are these patriarchal bonds that need to be loosened, if you go the white feminist route, you end up in grave trouble because it sort of makes you see everything that makes you a woman as a way to oppress you. And by that same lens, motherhood is always to be seen as a burden because it puts you at a disadvantage in comparison to men. And I was telling Birdie this morning that I'm not interested in competing with men. I want to know what it means to be a woman, and I want to have a full life, which I hope includes love and passion and fulfillment. But mainly, I want to live a life with purpose. I want to live a meaningful life, and this is where the example of Black womanhood is so liberating for somebody like me, because I think I already know that I don't have to wait for a child to feel like I'm now complete, but maybe one day that question will arise in my life, and when it does, I want to make the choice not on the basis of, will it limit my freedom, if the only freedom that I am thinking about is freedom from responsibility, from commitment, from having to stretch myself to become something more and something new. If anything, I think the decision should be made on the basis of whether I can make motherhood marry my life's work, which is more than just career and success. It is really a question of what I want to stand for and what I think I will leave behind when I'm no longer here. And again, for all of these reasons, I'm just really grateful to Du Bois and for this essay, because he gives you the eyes to see through the fog of the lies of white standards and to actually examine who you are and what you want from your life. And he gives you a way to see the actual beauty and strength of Black womanhood and that ideal, that revolutionary ideal it represents, which I think is for all of us to inherit, not just in this country, but the whole world.
We're going to conclude this act with some original poetry by our very own John Patterson. I just want to say, before that, John has been a member of the reading group basically since we started meeting here at the library. And I think as I was kind of thinking about what to say, because I don't know what your poem is going to be, because you just wrote it, I had some reflections of my own, which were that actually Shimbarta and Kathy and I were talking about this, of how to interpret the title of Darkwater. And this is my interpretation, which may be wrong, but I'm going to try it. And so the way that I read this title of Darkwater is that it could be seen as a reference to the book of Genesis, which starts, as many people know, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters. And the reason why I connect it to the title of this book is because Du Bois is saying that out of darkness comes a new creation. And out of a world in crisis, Du Bois is producing this great vision of a world that is remade, of a new society. And with that, it's like it compels him to produce all of this art and poetry, and to breathe life into wounded souls. And so I think John is one person in our group who is a testament to that fact, that from within the veil comes poetry and comes a spirit that moves people to give all of themselves. And in our quest for freedom, we are called to rediscover first our relationships with one another, but also to rediscover hope. And so with that, I'd like to introduce John to read his poetry.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank everyone for coming and challenging the rain and bad weather. And I want to give my best shout out to the team that put this program together. They did a wonderful, wonderful job, and I'm very, very encouraged. I'll give you a little background. I'm very appreciative to this group because when I moved here, I knew no one other than my sister and 4 family members. And I was looking for a place to have a sense of community. And these people in the Blackwell Reading Group have become my family. So I really thank you all, because you're all very dear and special to me. Okay, my poem is called Hope. Wait a minute, I have to unlock my phone. Okay. It's called Hope. I was inspired by the Bois reading, and even though some of the parts of it was dark, it still inspired me to have hope. So this is called Hope. I was taken from the continent of Africa and endured the transatlantic Middle Passages, only to the shores of Charleston, South Carolina. I was nothing other than property to be sold on the auction block in order to build a new world economy. I endured my new life in America on a slave plantation in Charleston, South Carolina, to become whipped, showing the lashes on my heavy scarred back, thought to be inhuman, just white-owned property. Slavery was more common in South Carolina than North Carolina because rice, due to its warmer climate and economy, as opposed to North Carolina, who had smaller farms and less slaves were needed. I was the 4th generation on the Ward plantation, the owner of 1,131 slaves in 1860. I became a runaway slave moving through the swamps of South Carolina to Florida, aided by the Seminoles, the indigenous people on the reservation. There, I met my wife, and we had 6 children. We arrived in Philadelphia in 1906 with hope-filled lives to become free, leaving the South. Philadelphia was considered a better place for Negroes than South Carolina, and after Reconstruction. Skilled Negroes of South Carolina after Reconstruction were rented out and paid a small salary for their work, with contracts that could be a few days or up to a year, depending on their skills. Our family moved to South Philadelphia, the melting pot for Black Philadelphians living near the dock, as we walked to work each day to load and unload the ships. Philadelphia was considered a manufacturing and highly industrial city, with new formed unions which kept Negroes out. Philadelphia was thought to be a highly industrial and manufacturing city where Negroes could thrive with a better future, with hope and promise, starting a new working class for the new Negro in Philadelphia. Although there were hidden covenants where Negroes could live, which dictated where they could and couldn't live, my heart is beating with new excitement for a new life and necessary change, taking effective action and responsibility for the rich lives we most righteously all deserve. We possess hope-filled lives with a profound mission, helping others, especially those who seem to suffer the worst. My hope becomes resilient to enjoy a happy, fulfilling life, fighting for peace, justice, and freedom to become fully enjoyed. We'll definitely have a great, profound mission helping those who seem to suffer the worst. We're definitely determined to change our lives and destiny, embracing lives of peace, truth, and justice in which we most righteously deserve. Our hope-filled lives are resilient to facilitate happy, winning, and fulfilling lives with true, actualized dreams. We're definitely determined to write a winning life's narrative with truth, happiness, and freedom to be enjoyed by everyone. We're definitely determined to make effective action and full charge of our lives, the true responsibility, changing our lives, environment, our circumstances, and our destiny. We're convinced with determination, conviction, and action to make a difference, not only within our own lives, but also the lives of many others. We will definitely live happy, fulfilling lives that we righteously deserve, becoming victors instead of victims, and great life masters with full responsibility, executing the lives we truly deserve. We will show actual proof that nothing becomes impossible to achieve in this lifetime. We'll become life masters and dream weavers, spinning dreams into reality, into our new life's greatest tapestry. We'll claim lives of victory with winning and fulfilling lives and true actualized dreams. Our lives with innate potential and unlimited capabilities for life and living as grand masters, making the impossible possible with a profound new reality. Each day we're making effective efforts with powerful, purposeful lives, becoming undefeated by cosmic life storms with howling hurricane winds of mass destructions, creating havoc for our wonderful, amazing lives. Our current advancements are far beyond understanding and comprehension, creating a new historical legacy for our future survival and destiny. We're definitely changing our current life's conditions and circumstances that haunt, assail, and continue to assault us. We're definitely determined to open a new life's chapter, writing a new life's narrative with lives of conviction and wisdom, fighting devilish functions never to become held back. We're rising to the occasion with lives of effective action, taking full responsibility and charge of our lives, adopting compassion with indomitable strength, becoming strong like Pittsburgh's carbon steel. We'll definitely cross life's finish line as Olympians and champions, never fretting or fearful, with sincere hearts, with new light of dawn. We become proud and confident, life's greatest warriors, fighting for peace, justice, freedom, and culture, solidifying our wonderful, amazing lives. We're definitely determined to triumph, changing our current circumstances and life situations, with lives of powerful strength, remaining unscathed by cosmically life storms that continue to assault us. What I feel is definitely real, writing a new life narrative, changing our lives and history. When repaying our debts of gratitude for those who came before us, empowered with dignity and respect, what we righteously deserve. We're definitely changing our lives and our hearts and trajectory of the future with optimism and celebration. Glad to be alive, believing in ourselves without doubt, unleashing a new dawn, reshaping our lives and destiny. We remain steadfast, resilient, life warriors, do or die, with commitment, becoming victorious in all life's greatest endeavors, winning again and again. We're creating lives with a new life of humanity, with full excitement, with towering strength, becoming strong like Pittsburgh's carbon steel. We're looking into our life's mirror with a new life's reflection, with power and unlimited prosperity and great inner strength, becoming the strong, great people we've always envisioned. We're definitely proud of our accomplishment of truth, justice, and freedom, uplifting our ancestors, definitely as our role models, to become absolutely happy and free. Our lives are the mirror that reflect our lives, minds, and souls in total harmony together with the entire universe without censorship, looking towards a new life and future. Our life's mirror will not only reflect our outer appearance, but also our warm, compassionate souls. Our lives with the utmost conviction and virtue as we become strong human beings with truth, justice, and freedom, and celebrating happiness and tranquility without lives of great suffering. We'll definitely polish our lives and our heavy tarnished mirror until it shines brighter than ever, free of illusions, with a clear life, hearts and minds to make a significant difference for the lives and humanity, with a new life's history, a narrative, and a true reality. We all possess our very own tarnished mirrors, making our life's mirror shine brighter than ever before, shining with lives of a happy new hope that corresponds with the life that we righteously deserve. We possess new lives of hope, undertaking a profound new life's journey and mission with bright, shining lives with respect and dignity for life and living. We're definitely becoming masterful life polishers, not only polishing our outer appearance, but what's deeply buried in the deep set of our souls. We'll create a new life's portrait that only true masters of lives and souls to eloquently display our life of truth and justice as great human beings. Our face becomes our powerful new mirror to look inward with changed minds and hearts, and our lives beautifully polished as we look into a clear mirror for the very first time. We're fully endowed with lives of great beauty, not from our outer appearance, but what's deep within our lives and souls, emerging from ignorance and darkness into the bright light with shining new hope. We're definitely building a new inner freedom that makes us truly happy and free, overcoming difficult situations as victors and life champions, taking our well-deserved bows for relentless perseverance, never giving in to the greatest robbers of dreams and aspirations. We're definitely reborn with a new freedom, with hope-filled lives that respond to justice, operating without hindrance or obstruction. We open our eyes wide each day to see the truth, always doing what's right, with lives of great hope for necessary and immediate change in order to create a happy, fulfilling, and winning life with true, actualized dreams. We're showing actual proof that nothing becomes impossible to handle, achieving valuable, victorious lives of truth and justice, winning at the crucial moment when it counts the most. We've become our own life's protagonists in our rich life's greatest drama, with full responsibility to transform white supremacy without fear or heartbreak into an awesome, wonderful, amazing life's narrative, just as we've always envisioned. We're building strong, happy lives of triumph with great abundance, with life of unlimited prosperity and fortune, steadily growing for the present and the future, with a new glamorous life, with truth, freedom, and justice, with peace and tranquility, with new hope-filled lives. Hope is free, and we all possess it. Hope is the courage to desire to win, regardless of our challenges and life storms that haunt and assault us. We definitely will lead shining, wonderful lives, fulfilling our ancestors' wishes as we become their greatest survivors and successors, without regrets as we triumph, fueled with hope-filled lives, always winning in the very end when it counts the most. As long as we have hope, we are always life's greatest winners. Hope is the courage and the desire to always win. Hope becomes our greatest ally and friend. We must always remember our mother, her face, and our memories. We couldn't become the people that we truly are, happy. The beautiful expression on our mother's faces becomes heavily etched in our hearts, lives, and souls. Many of us have become strong because of our mothers who never gave up on us. Because of our mothers, we've cultivated well-balanced lives, becoming strong, like Pittsburgh's Carmen Steele. Respect and dignity for mothers' love, support, and encouragement. I want to thank everyone for listening today and supporting the Blackwell Library and its reading group.
I'm a little speechless, but I just wanted to say, first off, I'm Kathy. I'm a member of the Free School, and I'm humbled to say I'm a facilitator of this reading group. And I'm humbled because I'm really grateful to have met each and every one of you. Great poets like John, but also great women who have dedicated themselves to being teachers and educators, but also something, you know, when we first restarted this reading group in August. In some ways, Tony had mentioned in your lecture, I look in this room right now and all I see looking back at me are all freedom fighters or revolutionaries. And through reading together, I have found that has to be very true. I couldn't imagine a group of people who would be more willing to, you know, fight and struggle and even lay their lives down for these ideas and for this vision of a new future and the society that we wish to build. More than the people that are gathered here today. And so with that, I just wanted to say that we've come to the third and culminating and final act of our program this evening, and it is titled The Immortal Child, and that is taken from the essay with the same title from Du Bois's Darkwater. And that, you know, as Jeremiah said, this book is kind of put together by Du Bois in a kind of certain sequence with a certain kind of poetry and rhythm. And it is really in that third act of his own book that I believe he really puts forward a vision for a future that we must fight for in the sea of darkness, leaving us with this kind of light, as John, you were saying, in the sea of darkness. And so I think it's really fitting that we bring ourselves from within the veil into what I feel could be called the broad crossroads of the moral choice, and it is one to be made by all humanity. And this choice is really defined by, many questions, but I just wanted to name a few here. And the first one really is, what kind of a new society shall we dedicate ourselves wholly to building for our descendants to inhabit? What would we hold sacred in this new society? And what kind of ideals would our children learn and aspire to in this new society? And can we fight for every child as if they were our own, of all colors and of all races? And we have to also ask ourselves, what must we do to begin preparing ourselves for this very uphill but very difficult but also very beautiful struggle to make this vision real? Can we do away with those ideas, those corrupt ideals and standards that our society has worshipped for too long, like the false idols of white supremacy and greed and empire, to make way for this new world? And can we fight with every ounce of our strength and every ounce of our courage to make this a reality? And so I really do believe that our reading group has found ourselves, whether unconsciously, but eventually very consciously, in the business of fighting for this clarity that Du Bois has left for us to really inherit from Darkwater. And so I could say more, but I wanted to begin by saying that this section will consist of a poem, and then an essay, and then a final concluding poem. So I'll say a little bit about each and introduce each of our readers. And so we'll begin with our first section featuring Du Bois's 1914 poem titled "The Prayers of God," which will be read aloud today by Reverend Isaac Miller. And Du Bois writes this poem at the outbreak of World War I, where bloodshed raged across Europe and Jim Crow hung over the South like a dark cloud. During that time, that was meant to be the pinnacle of white and Western civilization, but really was this sharp descent into war and madness. And the poem wasn't easy for us to read because it vividly evoked this painful and bloody record of white supremacy, but also it ends with this very important but difficult reckoning that our society must undergo, in which we force ourselves to face the fact that when America crucifies its darker sons and daughters and wages war on the world and darker humanity, it is really crucifying God. And so I'd like to call up Reverend Isaac Miller to read our poem for this portion.
Thank you, Kathy, and sure it's good to see everybody here. I just want to repeat the thanks to Barbara and the library here and to the group as a whole and folks who put this together. I always think my voice is loud enough to be heard without a mic. Just a quick word about how I met folks in the free school. I had gone down to D.C. for a demonstration that was sponsored by the Council on American Islamic Relations, January 2 years ago, and I went there because of the fact that it was a trip that I took to the Middle East a year out of, before my last year in seminary. I taught in Beirut, Lebanon, made my first trip to Palestine. The reason I took that school year out is because of the fact I'm an Episcopalian. And frankly, I had some real reservations. Do I want to get ordained into a white church? And I figured I need to go someplace where race is not the issue. That's not trying to tell you that in the Middle East has got everything smoothed out and so forth, but race isn't the major issue there. I left Beirut 2 days into the Six-Day War in 1966, I believe it was, maybe 67, I can't remember. I went back probably 30 years later to a conference, a Black Liberation Conference, at which the main speaker was a brother named Edward Said. Blew my mind. It was in Bethlehem. I was walking streets in Bethlehem one night, going to the place called the Church of the Nativity. Weren't many lights out and weren't many street lights, and there was a bunch of brothers that were hanging around. You didn't see too many sisters. I got a little bit worried, and I said to myself, wait a minute. This reminds me of North Philadelphia. I know a little bit of Arabic. So as long as I can communicate to the brothers on the street, look, I know you well enough to try to speak your language. Treat them like human beings. When you get to where you got to go find. I went to that conference, that demonstration in Washington, because the last trip that my wife, our daughter, and I, my daughter from high school took was to another conference in Bethlehem. Not long after that trip, the symptoms of my wife's illness came crashing in. So I wanted to go to that demonstration to honor my wife. I looked up and I saw Brother Tony, and I said, wait a minute, I know this dude. I went over to say hello, and I had on one of these things somebody had given me. He said, take that down. Saw who I was. Introduced me to this group of young people that were with him. And one of them said, you followed Father Washington. Wait a minute. Here I am in D.C., and this Chinese American sister recognizes my predecessor. Blew my mind. Think like you, John. There was something at work beyond me. I think the Spirit was at work. I think my wife was at work. I think the Spirit of my wife was saying, struggling with her death, I needed to find a group of folks who were a little bit younger and a whole lot smaller than I am, and trying to hang out with them. I think like you, John, I discovered family. Folks willing to recognize and understand the humanity of all sorts of folks, whether you're a little bit older or not, a whole lot dumber, in my case. Your warmth as a group, the way you welcome folks, the way you got the ability to recognize shared humanity, it seems to me, is part of what Du Bois is struggling and hopes for us all to see. The poem I want to read is The Prayers of God. I like the poem because of the first opening verses, because it captures the kind of anger that I've had, maybe not at God, but the way in which God has been crafted for us in an idolatrous way, in a white supremacist way that justifies violence and war and exploitation. And I like the poem most because of the last two lines. Let me read now. Name of God's name, red murder reigns. All hell is loose. On gold, autonomous air walk grinning devils, barbed and hooved, while high on hills of hate, black blossom, crimson skied, thou sittest dumb. Father Almighty, earth is mad. Palsied our cunning hands, rotten our goal. Our argosies reel and stagger over empty seas. All the long aisles of thy great temples, God, stink with the entrails of our souls, and thou art dumb. Above the thunder of thy thunderous Lord, lightning thy lightnings, rings and roars, dark damnation of this hell of war. Red piles the plump of hearts and heads and little children's hands. Allah Elohim, very God of God, death is here. Dead are the living, deep dead the dead. Dying are the earth's unborns, the babe's wide eyes of genius and joy, poems and prayers, sun glows and earth songs, great pictured dreams, immarbled fantasies, high hemming heavens, all in this dread night, drive and shriek and choke and die, this long ghost the night, while thou art dumb. Have mercy upon us, miserable sinners. Stand forth, unveil thy face, pour down the light that seeds above the throne, and blaze this devil's dance to darkness. Hear, speak, in Christ's great name. I hear. Forgive me, God. Above the thunder I hearken, beneath the silence now I hear. Wait, God, a little space. It is so strange to talk with thee alone. This gold, I took it. Is it thine? Forgive. I did not know. Blood. Is it wet with blood? 'Tis from my brother's hands. I know his hands are mine. It flowed for thee, O Lord. War. Not so. Not war. Dominion, Lord, over black, not white, black, brown, and fawn, and not thy chosen brood, O God. We murdered to build thy kingdom, to drape our lives and little ones, and set their souls aglitter. For this we killed these lesser breeds, and civilized their dead, raping red rubber, diamond, cocoa, gold. For this too, once in thy name, I lynched a nigger. He raved and writhed. I heard him cry. I felt the light leap and lie. I saw him crackle there on high. I watched him wither. Thou, thee, I lynched thee. Awake me, God, I sleep. What was that awful word thou saidest? That black and riven thing, was it thee? That gasp, was it thine? This pain, is it thine? And then these bullets piercing thee. Have all the wars of all the world down all them time drawn blood from thee? Have all the lives and thefts and hates, is this thy crucifixion, God? And not that funny little cross with vinegar and thorns? Is this thy kingdom here, not there? The stone and stucco drift of dreams. Help, I sense that low and awful cry. Who cries? Who weeps? With silent sob that rends and tears. Can God sob? Who prays? I hear strong prayers thrown by like mighty winds on dusky moors. Can God pray? Prayest thou, Lord, and to me? Thou needest me? Thou needest me? Thou needest me? Poor, wounded soul, of this I never dreamed. I thought, courage, God, I come. I just want to say one quick thing. When I first read this, that line, I come, is what jumped out at me, and I remembered how as a kid I used to put a towel around my shoulders and act like I was Superman, jump off the sofa. And then it dawned upon me, I don't think Du Bois is talking about himself or anybody as an individual, much less a 5 or 6 year old kid. Du Bois is talking about all of us. That the hope for God is our coming together with that vision of hope, with that vision for the whole of humanity, and giving our lives to make that vision real.
I always really appreciate that poem because it reminds me of what King calls a revolution of values, in which he says, we can no longer afford to worship the god of hate or bow before the altar of retaliation, but rather we must develop an overriding loyalty to mankind as a whole. And then with that, I feel like it's a great transition into our next essay, The Immortal Child, presented to us by Kalila Mays. And while other portions of Darkwater were challenging, we were immediately on board when we read the opening lines of the essay where Du Bois says, all human problems in the immortal child and his education is the problem of problems. And it just became really clear that as we continued that discussion that day, any kind of mass movement that unifies the people in this time must make the child, and especially the Black child's education, central. And that this would be the ideal that would transform completely Philadelphia, let alone America as a whole, to no longer build two kinds of schools, one for children that live east of 52nd Street that are shiny and connected to elite universities' gentrification plans, and another for children that live west of 52nd Street with crumbling, asbestos-ridden walls and broken lights and teachers that don't care. But instead, we would build one kind of school for all children in the city, bright, furnished, and attentive to all their needs, and to say that every child matters. And so with that, I wanted to call Kalila to present a few passages from that essay.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Can you all hear me? Okay, good. Throughout the time that we've been in the reading group, there's a couple of themes that we always come back to. And those themes are kind of what led me to pick the passages that I selected for reading this evening. One theme is humanity. And one topic that we always seem to come back to is, do we have the capacity to make a better society? Do we really have that? And in the first section that I'm going to be reading from this essay, I think Du Bois talks about that capacity and that we really do have it, and you can have it through, and you can see through your children. So let me just stop there and I'll start reading. In the treatment of the child, the world foreshadows its own future and faith. All words and all thinking lead to the child, to that vast immortality and wide sweep of infinite possibility which the child represents. And yet the mothers and fathers and the men and women of my race must often pause and ask, is it worthwhile? Ought children be born to us? Have we any right to make human souls face what we face today? The answer is clear. If the great battle of human right against poverty, against disease, against color prejudice is to be won. It must be won not in our day, but in the day of our children's children. Ours is the blood and dust of battle, theirs the rewards of victory. If they are not there because we have not brought them into the world, we have been the guiltiest factor in conquering ourselves. It is our duty, then, to accomplish the immortality of Black blood, in order that the day may come in this dark world when poverty shall be abolished, privilege be based on individual desert, and the color of a man's skin be of no bar to the outlook of his soul. If it is our duty as honest colored men and women battling for a great principle, to bring not aimless rafts of children to the world, but as many as with reasonable sacrifice we can train to the largest manhood, what in its inner essence shall that training be, particularly in its beginning? The first temptation is to shield the child, to hedge it about that it may not know and will not dream of the color line. Then, when we can no longer wholly shield, to indulge and pamper and coddle, as though in this dumb way to compensate. From this attitude comes the multitude of us spoiled, wayward, disappointed children. And must we not blame ourselves? For while the motive was pure and the outer menace undoubted, is shielding and indulgence the way to meet it? Some Negro parents, realizing this, leave their children to sink or swim in the sea of race prejudice. They neither shield nor explain, but thus thrust them forward grimly into a school or street and let them learn as they may from brutal fact. Out of this may come strength, poise, self-dependence, and out of it too may come bewilderment, cringing deception, and self-distrust. It is, all said, a brutal, unfair method, and in its way, it is as bad as shielding and indulgence. Why not rather face the facts and tell the truth? Your child is wiser than you think. The truth lies ever between extremes. It is wrong to introduce the child to race consciousness prematurely. It is dangerous to let the consciousness grow spontaneously without intelligent guidance. With every step of dawning intelligence, explanation, frank, free, guiding explanation must come. The day will dawn when the mother must explain gently but clearly why the little girls next door do not want to play with niggers, what the real cause is of the teacher's unsympathetic attitude, and how people may ride in the backs of streetcars and the smoker end of trains and still be people, honest, high-minded souls. Remember, too, that in such frank explanation, you are speaking in 9 cases out of 10 to a good deal clearer understanding than you think, and that the child mind has what your tired soul may have lost faith in, the power and the glory. Out of little unspoiled souls rise up wonderful resources and healing balm. Once the colored child understands the white world's attitude and the shameful wrong of it, you will have furnished it with a great life motive, a power and impulse towards good, which is the mightiest thing man has. How many white folk would give their own souls if they might graft into their children's soul a great, moving, guiding ideal? With this power there comes, in the transfiguring soul of childhood, the glory, the vision of accomplishment, the lofty ideal. Once let the strength of the motive work, it becomes the life task of the parent to guide and shape the ideal, to raise it from resentment and revenge to dignity and self-respect, to breadth and accomplishment, to human service, to beat back every thought of cringing and surrender. Here at last, we speak with no hesitation, with no lack of faith, for we know that as the world grows better, there will be realized in our children's lives that which we fight unfalteringly but vainly now. Thank you.
All right, so the last poem on our section today here in our I'm not speaking to the mic. You're good. Is titled A Hymn to the Peoples, and it'll be read by Terrence Walker and Albert Tung. And to me, this, very quickly, this poem was written in 1911 at Du Bois's, the conference that he organized in, I believe, London.
Yeah.
Yes, titled The Conference of Universal Races. And it was read aloud in kind of the opening of that conference. And it reminds me of this quote that James Baldwin actually ends one of his great essays on, called, or he starts it by saying, an old world is dying, and a new one, kicking in the belly of its mother, time, announces that it is ready to be born. This birth will not be easy, and many of us are doomed to discover that we are exceedingly clumsy midwives. No matter, so long as we accept that our responsibility is to the newborn, the acceptance of responsibility contains the key to the necessary evolving skill. So with that, I wanted to call up my matching poem readers. Take it away. I looked up and was like, you guys are wearing yours.
Yeah, the poem binds us together.
Actually, before we start, I did want to give you a quick notice. I wanted to let you know why I really love this poem. I first read it some 45 years ago, and upon reading it again, I'm finding things that I didn't see then. It is not unusual that the poem would be timeless, because in actuality, he covers time and space, history and mystery, growth, birth, evolution, revelation, as well as a revolution at the end. This poem reminds me a lot of this reading group, because it challenges what I think, what I know, and what I think I know. That's why hopefully we'll start up again, and I hope that you will all join us in that little journey. With that, a hymn of the peoples, hymn to the peoples, I'm so sorry. O truce of God and primal meeting of the sons of man, foreshadowing the union of the world. From all ends of the earth we come, old night, the elder sister of the day, mother of dawn in the golden east, meets in the misty twilight with her brood, pale and black, tawny, red and brown, the mighty human rainbow of the world, spanning its wilderness of storm. Softly in sympathy, the sunlight falls. Rare is the radiance of the moon, and on the darkest midnight blaze the stars, the far-flown shadows of whose brilliance drop like a dream on the dim shores of time, forecasting days that are to these as day to night. So sit we all as one, so gloomed in tall and stone-swathed groves, the Buddha walks with Christ, and our Quran and Bible both be holy.
Almighty Word, in this thine awful sanctuary, first and flame-haunted city of the widened world, assoil us, Lord of lands and seas. We are but weak and wayward men, distraught alike with hatred and vainglory, prone to despise the soul that breathes within. High-vision hordes that lie and steal and kill, sinning the sin each separate heart disclaims, clamoring upon our riven, writhing selves, besieging heaven by trampling men to hell. We be blood guilty, lo, our hands be red. Not one may blame the other in this sin. But here in the white silence of the dawn, before the womb of time, with bowed hearts all flame and shame, we face the birth pangs of a world. We hear the stifled cry of nations all but born, the wail of women ravished of their stunted brood. We see the nakedness of toil, the poverty of wealth. We know the anarchy of empire and doleful death of life. And hearing, seeing, knowing all, we cry, Save us, World Spirit, from our lesser selves. Grant us that war and hatred cease. Reveal our souls in every race and hue. Help us, O human God, in this thy truth, to make humanity divine.
So we have reached the end of our program here tonight. Apologies for running very close to time. I know the library has to close by 7. We should be exiting the building by 6:55 even. But before we go, I just want to quickly name everybody who spoke today. So if when I say your name, please stand up. Dr. Anthony Montero, Kathy Bishop, Ken Johnson, Bernadette Rogers, Purva Chatterjee, John Patterson, Reverend Isaac Miller, Kalila Mays, Albert Tong, and Terrence Walker. Thank you everyone for being part of this journey, and it's fair to say that this journey through all these different ideas, histories, poetry, songs, we're very different people and better people because of it. And I really do think that through tonight's production, we can affirm that with the right ideas, with the right knowledge and principles and courage, especially with the gifts of Du Bois, we can seize the future. And very quickly, we have something special to present to Immortal Chatterjee. Please come up.
I was one of the organizers.
Yes, but you're also going to be going away for a little bit of time. So we have a card that we all signed, and it is featuring this artwork by Jacob Lawrence called "The Libraries Are Appreciated." And it just reminded me of us meeting the library every single week. And they're also,
Oh yeah, and Ken, so actually, if for people who weren't here last week, we had a really nice workshopping session going through all these different parts of the program together, and Ken took some really nice photos that made its way over to us, and so we have just some photos as a group, yeah. But yeah, just some, because the context is that Shimbarta will be heading over to India soon, and it's not a goodbye, but it's it means a lot to have worked on this with you, and I feel really privileged and grateful to be your comrade through all this.
Sorry, surprise. Very quickly, I wanted to mention that many of us have asked what the future of this reading group will be, and where things stand right now, we, the facilitators, and also the library are going to take some time to sort some things out, but we're hoping to start back up in the springtime of 2026. So please leave your information with the sign-up sheet, your name and email, and so we can get in touch with you when we have more information. And so I know we only have a couple minutes, but if there's anything you wanted to say about how the program moved you, or share a few comments to any of the speakers. I know Bertie, you brought up the idea of feedback. All the readers, well, make sure to tell them on your way out as we exit the building by 6:55. There's also cake in the back and refreshments up here, so please enjoy that, and thank you again for coming to this program, and we hope you have a very good evening. I think it was really special. And a great holiday this week. Oh man, I really love the way you spoke so beautifully. Go ahead.